Yo, what's good, my people? Welcome back to the SillyMMA channel. And recently, the UFC's been getting worse, man. We've seen it, we've felt it, and even if it's just subconsciously, you can just tell the events are lacking. The pay-per-views are less hyped. There's less hype behind the fighters. There's less hype behind the fights, and this is all due to the UFC, and it's their fault. And to be honest, it's just an easy fix for the UFC, in my opinion. In this video today, we'll be identifying all the problems with the UFC. If you enjoy the video, please leave a like, subscribe, leave a comment, let me know your thoughts on the UFC in its current state. And let's get into the first problem, man. So, into the first problem with the UFC, and this is shitty main events. Think about it. Since the start of 2024, we've had Derek Lewis versus Teixeira, which is coming up soon, Blanchfield versus Barber next week, Delizze versus Vettori, Mackenzie Dern versus Ribas, Tybura versus Spivak, Jairzinho versus Gaziev, Lemos versus Jandaroba, Cortez versus Namajunas, Blanchfield versus Fiorot, Ribas versus Namajunas, and Tuivasa versus Tybura. How is this acceptable, man? We sit through cards for a shitty main event between females or fat heavyweights, man, and at least 45% of these main events have been in the apex, and they always have shitty co-main events as well. Why is Cody Pundage co-main in an event? Why is Ponzinibbio consistently co-main in Fight Night events, man? And it's just rubbish, man. And you know you have to get decent events, even like back in the day, a Stephen Wonderboy versus a Kevin Holland main event. That's a good main event. Carlos Praches versus Ian Gary. That's a good main event. You know, these main events are unacceptable. The standard should be top 10 guys, you know, and no woman. We don't want to see women, man. Maybe if you have to do one, you know, but 4 to 5 WMMA headline cards a year. That's just bullshit, man. That's just rubbish. It feels like all the main events lack meaning, you know, and they're just normal fights that for some reason go on for 5 rounds instead of 3. And it's not even the fight nights. When you look at it, even some pay-per-view main events are average and like lackluster, man. Like, who asked for O'Malley and Marab 2? No one asked for that. Even Dana White at the press conference, he couldn't give an answer. Why are they getting a rematch? O'Malley hasn't done shit. There's contenders, Sandhagen, Peter Yan, even like fucking Figueiredo deserves it more. O'Malley, like, he's got 1 ranked win. Wait, no, 2. No, you got... Oh, yeah, no, he's got 3 ranked wins. But you know what I mean? Like, bro, he doesn't deserve that shit. And 2 flyweight pay-per-view main events last year with Alejandro Pantoja. I love Pantoja. I think the UFC overlook him. But flyweights have no hype, man. There's no storyline ever. Katsukura debuting and Pantoja headlining UFC 310. I know that was short notice. It was meant to be Bilal and Shafkat. But come on, man. Anyway, how to fix this? WMMA title fights, headlining fight nights. Hear me out. Occasionally, they can be on a co-main, but for the most part, man, just whack them on Fight Night main events, crowded main events, or even just freaking Apex one, man. No one cares. And it puts a bit of meaning behind it. It puts a belt, even if it's WMMA. There's something, man. Because I'm fed up of these being on pay-per-views, man. They're just 2 title fights. Oh my god, girl, you're 2 title fights. There's always a woman fight. No one cares, man. And also stop just giving main events opportunities to anyone. There should be meaning. It should be a privilege to be on that poster for the first time. But now the UFC are just lazy, you know. They cruise through the fight nights and they make money from it, whatever they do, especially the ones that are Apex. They don't have to rent out any facilities. So we just end up with shitty events, man. Anyway, on to the second problem, not stacking cards. We've become so numb and used to average cards. We get excited at seeing more than 3 ranked fights on a pay-per-view main card. We were saying UFC 313 so stacked. There was like 2 or 3 ranked male fights on it, you know. The UFC keep drowning pay-per-view talent into stacked fight night cards, and this is where it creates the instability, in my opinion. Man with me here, I'm going to waffle a bit. The Abu Dhabi cards, the Saudi cards, these are stacked fight nights, and their main card is like 5 fight night main events. Like, and instead of them being main events, we get Blanchfield versus Fiorot and Tybura versus Spivak. Of course, we need these stacked cards once in a while when you go to the occasional Abu Dhabi or something like that. But when you put in like pay-per-view main card fights as a fight night main event consistently, it just ruins pay-per-views completely. Look at Adesanya versus Imavov. Adesanya versus Imavov could take a rubbish pay-per-view to a decent pay-per-view. Buckley versus Usman. Imagine Buckley versus Usman on this upcoming 316 card. We will be calling it one of the best pay-per-views of the year. But no, UFC Atlanta main event. And you know, whacking these fights on pay-per-view main cards will do wonders, man. In 2024, we had multiple stacked cards. UFC 298, UFC 299, UFC 300, UFC 303, UFC 308. Like, so far this year, we're deep into the year. We've had you could count for 11, but we've had one really stacked cards to the level of the cards we just had. And even UFC 317 looks mid. International Fight Week looks mid, man. Kopylov and Paulo Costa as the featured fight in 2025, man. Come on. And how to waste. Stop wasting talent by putting individual fights in individual places. And sometimes gather these cards, and a fix for this is just cutting down on 4 to 6 fight nights a year. Like just that little amount is what the UFC has to do, and it could improve the whole stability of the UFC. But the UFC are money greedy, man. They're blinded by the money. They want an extra 6 mil of the Apex cards instead of just everything being good, man. So just cut down some of these little events. Like when you sign that next contract with your next dealer, instead of saying like 45 events, whatever it is, say 40, and watch how the landscape improves. Now, I've been on to the fights, the actual UFC events, but now I want to get into the behind the scenes. Another big problem, man, is the lack of leader. The president, Dana White, Mr. Dana White, who we've been saying for so many years, oh man, I can't imagine the UFC without Dana White and Joe Rogan. And recently we've woken up, and these two are the biggest, most hated guys in the UFC now. You know, the president doesn't even care about the UFC anymore. Like, he's helping his rivals boxing more. Like, imagine boxing been killing it this year. UFC's been average, and this guy wants to go promote one of boxing's biggest fights. But when it comes down to promoting his product, which he cares about apparently, 15-minute press conference, oh, we've got to wrap it up, guys. Have you got any questions? Come on, man. He doesn't care anymore. He's going into bloody slap fighting more. And even he was complaining about the rankings. Like, he couldn't have changed them. Like, prime Dana White is walking into the office and saying, nah, boys, you gotta get out of here, change the rankings, man. I know he's got the AI now, but still. And also, it's obvious he's increasingly losing interest in the UFC as time goes on, and he's venturing off into power slap and the TKO boxing and all of that. And that's fine. Just resign from the company, man, and let someone else step up that actually cares. Like Mick Mannion, Hunter Campbell, even MMA Guru, bro. Get me on there. You know, there's no one stirring the UFC in the right direction. And how to fix this one is easy, man. Say bye-bye, all the emotional shit and that. Get rid of Dana White and get Joe Rogan, go with him. Because, you know, people forget, man. Joe Rogan a bitch as well. But, you know, we need to get a good president that gets us on track. And the promotion, this also relates to the behind the scenes. The promotion with the UFC has been rubbish. The UFC have become increasingly lazy with promoting fights, events. And you look at boxing, the whole trailers, people call them cringe, but they work, man. But, you know, we do the bare minimum. Posting fighter knockouts on Instagram and asking Nina Joma to ask them some gay questions, bro. Like if they wash their feet in the shower and stuff like that. Man, and then the press conference that they hold is 15 minutes. Cut short by big Dana White. You know? Like the UFC media is fully responsible for any fight that builds hype. We, us fans, created the hype for the fighting nerds. We create the hype between stars like Jean Silva, Gordon Spratches, Peyton Talbot. This is not the UFC, man. This is us, man. Imagine everyone on MMA social media just went quiet for like a year. No one would care about the UFC because there's no narratives being created. Like we have bloody MMA Guru, a YouTuber, doing more for the promotion than Dana White and all these guys. It doesn't make any sense, man. Boxing's running the show, and the UFC can't even sit two guys down. You saw boxing have that 5v5 face-off, whatever it was. You know, Ryan Garcia, all these big guys in the room. The UFC can't even get fucking Ruben Elliott and Ramiz Brahimaj to get on a FaceTime. You know, it doesn't make any sense, and the UFC is just weak with it, man. And how to fix better promotional from the company side, and as fighters, get them face to face, get them talking. Even that video call with Holloway and Topuria. Man, the COVID killed the UFC, man, because they clocked that we can do less, get away with it, and make more money. And then I'm just gonna go over all the things now and why it's happening, and it's because the UFC is getting way too comfortable. They built a fan base which settles for anything. That's me and you, bro. We're complaining, but it doesn't matter. We're gonna sit our asses down on that night and stay up with 5 monster cans to watch bloody Blanchfield versus Barber. You know, they know whatever sort of quality card they put on, nervous fighting, they can make profit and they'll be watching. You know, they go to the Apex, that's cheaper than going to a crowded arena. Easy, more money. You know, this makes the product more and more draining for us, and one day, surely we catch up, man. And the only way to fix this, unfortunately, is fucking boycott the sport. But you know, there's not much we can do here. We're addicted. It's like cocaine. Anyway, main takeaways that we should act on after this card: reduce the amount of fight night cards required. Like if it's around 45 events in a year, make it 40, and then 5 events boost pay-per-views so much. Also, get rid of Dana as the main president. Have him around, you know, but get someone who's solely focused on the UFC and that only, not helping their rivals. Also, promote the fights better and the fighters. And the UFC need to hold events as if they are still growing their fan base and they're about to go bankrupt again. That's my thoughts. If you enjoyed the video, please leave a like and subscribe. I think I've done very well there, you know. Anyway, leave a comment, all your thoughts. Shout out SillyMMA.